What's going on, guys, and welcome to the 2020 bull market. In this stock market outlook video, we're first going to take a look at the indexes on a weekly time frame, a daily time frame to kind of get the day-by-day analysis. Then we'll check out how my watch list from this past weekend performed, and we'll also talk about the trades that I made last week and how they went. So first, I think it's always important to get some perspective, go out on a weekly or even monthly chart and take a look at the long-term trend. And it's important to remember that the long-term trend is still up at this point. We're still within this nice uptrend on the Nasdaq and also the S&P 500. We dropped down below it, but we're back up there and ready to make a run at those all-time highs. So going back to the Nasdaq and looking at the weekly chart, you can see that we're above the 30-week moving average, which is this red line right here. On the S&P 500 and the other indexes, we're not there. And that's why I'm focusing on tech companies right now, because Nasdaq is clearly the leader. And if you actually go to a yearly chart, the Nasdaq is up 1.14%. The SPY is down 11%. I mean, tell me which one you want to own. And definitely don't own the Dow Jones. Not a good idea. But anyway, the Nasdaq is the leader. That's why I like to focus on tech stocks, which are also usually the growth stocks. And now let's check out the kind of day-by-day performance of the Nasdaq. So Monday was kind of a setup day. We basically opened right at the close of the previous Friday, or actually the Thursday, and we had a nice close. We closed right at the high of the day, and volume was there. It wasn't higher than the previous up session, but it was still pretty good. And that set up everything up for Tuesday, which was a very strong day on the Nasdaq and with a lot of growth stocks, where we opened on a gap up, but we closed strong right near the high of the day. And then on the Wednesday, you can see we had a nice productive consolidation day with all the trading range confined between the high and low of the previous day. And you can see we also closed higher than we opened and in that upper 50%. And that momentum carried onwards into Thursday, where we had another gap up, a drop down, but then a decent close. And then on Friday, we actually gapped up, which to me was actually a negative. I wanted another nice consolidation day like Wednesday, and a lot of growth stocks were actually hit very hard on this open. But after that gap up, we dropped down, but recovered really nicely heading into the weekend, which shows a lot of people aren't worried about holding over the weekend, which is definitely a huge sentiment boost. And overall volume was very good. You can see signs of accumulation right here, right here, right here. These are clear patterns that institutions are buying stocks. You don't see this type of volume, this type of accumulation days, unless institutions are behind it. And overall on the week, you can see that volume is quite strong, stronger than the previous day, which is always good. And we're climbing on the Nasdaq right towards those all-time highs. Now the S&P 500 is definitely a little bit weaker. You can see volume was higher on the S&P 500 as well. But if we go onto the daily chart, you can see kind of weaker days, where on Monday we actually had a down day, and overall the price action just wasn't quite as strong. And you can see that the S&P 500 is still kind of battling its 50-day moving average, which is this green dotted line. And next week, I do want to see this cross above this, because this could be a potential area of resistance, because a lot of people watch the 50-day moving average to kind of judge the trend of the indexes and individual stocks. And if we go to the Nasdaq, you can see that on this Tuesday, we had a strong gap up above this 50-day moving average, and we held it, which was a huge positive to me. And just in general, growth stocks acted fantastic last week. And that's what you want to see, the growth stocks leading. And we'll talk about that a little bit when we look at the watch list performance. But that was the Nasdaq and the S&P 500. The IWM was the weakest, as it has been. It's still below this 50-day moving average. And you had a couple bad days here, a weak Monday, a weak Wednesday, and also a weak Thursday. It's really clear to see that the mid and small cap stocks aren't doing that well. And another positive that I want to mention is the VIX is dropping. That's great to see. You want to see volatility dropping. And we're back down to 38, which is still decently high, but it's nowhere near what it was like in late March when it was up near 80. So that's a positive. And quickly running through the daily guppy charts, we're almost in a red, white, blue uptrend on the Nasdaq. The SPY needs a little bit more work. The Dow Jones needs a little bit more work, and the IWM is the weakest. And that VIX could be starting a blue, white, red downtrend, which would be a positive. So that's my take on the indexes. And now let's head over to the watch list. Okay, so here is my watch list from this past week. We had 13 stocks on there, and 12 of them were green for the week from the open on Monday all the way to the close. So that's a huge positive. And let's go back to a normal chart. So Safe was the only loser, and you can see after this big move up, it's kind of been wild and loose, but it is tightening up. So I'll be taking a look at this stock as another potential entry and looking for it to break through this level of resistance right here at this top, and then also this 66.74 level. But overall, Zoom was our best performer, and I own this from Monday the 13th. And second to that was AMD, which I actually didn't realize I was stopped out of on the Friday right here. So I actually didn't benefit at all from its performance, which was disappointing, but I'll wait for that next setup. Dexcom I also own, and that did really well. I actually added on Friday, and so far that's my best performing stock at this moment. TDoc I also own, did pretty decently, a gain of 15%. SGen did very well. Nvidia I bought on this day is doing pretty well. AirVN is also breaking out on above average volume. That's great to see. DocuSign is doing pretty well. LVGO was on fire and is just consolidating that move right here. And iFi also doing pretty well. Axon is struggling against its green line here, but if it breaks through that, I'll most likely take up a position. And PLMR also is struggling against some resistance here. I have been watching this carefully. I want to take up a position, but right now it's just not acting like other growth stocks, and it's not really breaking out like I would want to see. So that's how my watch list did. So overall, really strong numbers, a lot of big gainers this week, but obviously that's boosted by the overall Nasdaq, which was up 7%. So it's kind of a given that growth stocks would do pretty well last week. So now I want to quickly talk about my holdings, how I've been managing them, and let's go over here. So this is kind of my performance, my buy points, my initial stop losses. These might not be updated because this is just automatically calculated. But overall, Dexcom, my best performer, up 22%. And I added on Friday before it really broke out on the end of the day. So I'm up 4% on kind of my add-on buy. I also have a full position in DocuSign, which was doing really well earlier and is staying above that key 100 level. So if you're not familiar with Jesse Livermore, I highly suggest you check out his books. But for him, round numbers like 100, 200, 300, those are kind of magnets. And if a stock can break above them, he really thought that a stock could continue on and really make some nice gains. And Dexcom is an example of that. Broke through the 300 level and then just kept going. Zoom's been pretty solid, up 14% on that. And DocuSign I'm up overall around 7.5% in between these two buys. Nvidia's been doing okay, hasn't been doing too strongly. TDoc has been holding in there nicely. Net, I was up nicely the day after the green dot. Okta is a new buy. It's acting okay, but gave back some gains. And Dexcom, as I already mentioned, broke out on Friday. So Net, I do want to talk about a little bit because I bought on this pretty clear setup, this green dot, as it was moving upwards. Nice closing range here, and it gapped up the next day on above average volume, which was great. And this Friday, even though it's big negative volume, look at the price action. So it opened down, it gapped down, fell all the way down here, and I was a little bit worried, but I trusted my stop loss, and you can see it recovered almost to the open. So even though this is a big red day, this is actually constructive price action. So I actually like seeing that, and this is going to be a little bit more volatile because it is a recent IPO. And taking a look at Nvidia, it's above these resistance levels, but it's below this green line here. I would like to see it break through that. And TDoc, nice inside day on Friday when it was actually a huge gap down. You can see it recovered all the way almost to the close. DocuSign, as I said, hanging in there on that 100 level. That's kind of actually support at this time. And Zoom, nice explosion after this green dot, but these last 2 days kind of just been consolidating. So like a lot of big growth stocks, a lot of my holdings are kind of a little bit extended at this point. And so that's one of the reasons why next week I'm probably going to be a little bit more conservative, because I think we might have a pullback on the Nasdaq simply because a lot of the leaders are extended. Now, is that going to happen? I don't know. I don't know for sure, obviously, but I'm ready for it, and I'm going to play conservative and play by my plan. So that is pretty much it for the indexes and also the watch list and the current stocks that I own. And now let's check out the most recent IBD big picture article. So overall, they talk about how Friday, all the stocks followed through, and how Nasdaq had a steady gain throughout the week, up 2.8% each day since April 1st. And now they've got 5 things to look for that will kind of decide how this market acts. So you've got the earnings, a lot of big earnings results coming out in the next few weeks. Then the technical price action, as we went through it. They like to look at the 20-day EMA, and it's holding above that. And they also say, as I also agree with, follow the breakout stocks. Look at how TW is acting, Amazon, Netflix, Vertex. If the breakouts hold, that's a good indication that this rally has legs. And then look for signs of sector leadership. The chips are leading for me right now, but also a lot of medical companies and also mining companies are doing well. And finally, look at the sentiment indicators. They also talk about the VIX, which we already looked at. So these 5 things are very important. Keep them in mind. But overall, their current outlook is a confirmed uptrend. And a very positive thing for me, we've got no distribution days since this rally started, and we've had a couple accumulation days. So those are all good things. And now, lastly, let's check out the GMI, which is still red, but we're hanging in there 3 out of 6 on this past Thursday. So we could see this turn green next week. So overall, my take is right now we are in a confirmed uptrend. But as always, you should have a plan whether we have a big move upward once again next week, or if we have a pullback and potentially even more of a correction, because that could be a possibility and you have to be prepared for that. So keep your stops tight. Make sure you're staying up to date with when the earnings dates for the stocks you're looking at are. And one last thing, if you want a copy of my most recent updated rank sheet, all you have to do is comment down below basically one stock that you're looking to buy next week if a setup occurs. So I think there's a lot of great data in here. It could really be useful to your trading. So if you want a copy of this, just leave a comment down below. And also, if you like this video and like my analysis, make sure to leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, welcome, and make sure you hit that red subscribe button. But that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be posting my weekly watch list tomorrow, so make sure you stay on the lookout for that, and I'll see you guys in future videos.